Welcome to the Chelsea Skidmore Show. I'm here today with my guest, comedian, actor, writer, teacher, clown,
dancer, amateur dancer,
Chad Damiani. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is it's nice to see where you and Steve live.
What do you think?
It's as weird as I thought it would be.
Yeah. Where do you live?
I live in Studio City, Sherman Oaks. So like this area is not an area I'm in very often, but yeah, like I'm always curious about these little sort of roads into the anthill, like that you live on. You know,
yeah.
I don't want to give stalkers any.
No. I don't think.
You're like, it's fine. Tell stalkers where we are.
Well, yeah, off Sunset by the Comedy Store.
Yeah, fair enough.
I love Studio City.
I do too. It's it's gotten pretty expensive, but the best part for me is there's an area where I can walk my dog without a leash. And the only real problem is hobo poop, which dogs love. That's like caviar to dogs. But so how do I say where I live without stalkers finding me? No, I live right near Coldwater, Ventura, like right about there. But I've lived everywhere. I mean, how long have you been in LA?
6 years.
So I've been in LA for, I guess, 2003. So what is that? 16?
I'm so bad at math. 16?
Yeah.
I'm going off of what you said. I didn't even calculate it. I pretended I was thinking, but then I was like 6. Yeah.
I've been listening to your podcast and noticed a trend of you doing that in podcasts.
Really?
Yeah, bluffing. A lot of bluffing.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I was listening to the adult karate episode, and there was a lot of bluffing.
Fuck.
No, I think it's good. I think that's what a journalist or podcast host needs to do.
Yeah.
Right? You can't stop and keep asking questions.
Yeah, I can't even. Oh, just pretending I know what someone's talking about, and you can tell.
And I was listening. I'm like, she doesn't know what's going on right now.
That's so funny. So you are, you specialize, I guess one would say, in physical comedy, clowning, improv. So you can probably tell. I mean, I know that's all. It's also acting to be able to tell someone's behavior, but. Do you think that's like an element of that
Absolutely.
coming in? You have a special skill set that some people don't have.
That has been, so I guess it was about 7 years ago where I started doing something called idiot work, which is just a form of clowning. And for people listening, it's so tough because it's such a triggering word, clown, right?
I'm terrified of clowns.
Pennywise, I mean, it's just...
the punk band?
No, Pennywise from It, that scary clown.
Oh, that was his
fangs.
name?
Yeah.
Terrifying.
And... But really, like, it's really, when we talk about it, like, I don't wear a nose or shoes or anything like that. It's just more about connecting to an audience, like really seeing an audience, and then sort of playing in nonsense a lot, like not necessarily having any context or justification, just finding this sort of primal sense of play. Like, no different than children or dogs play. If you're in a good, sweet space and you're a clown and someone walks out of your show, they don't even know why they were laughing. Like, they couldn't articulate it. And but in order to do that, you really watch an audience. Like, you're not just waiting for laughs, and you're not just seeing when maybe some material that you're doing is unsettling, but you're reading all the nuances. And so you stare at audiences night after night, and you start to develop all these senses about like how people feel about things, or like you'll be in a party and you'll notice the one person who's like kind of set aside, and normally that would just be someone trying to hide, but their behavior is just glaring to you. I thought the thing that amazed me the most when I started doing this work a lot was also I could remember the entire audience for like a day or two. Like I knew where everyone was sitting. I can remember, because it's like, that's your job. Your job is to make them feel like they're seen, and what they're feeling and what they want in regards to the show is your highest priority.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it does. It affects your life. I've noticed going home see my parents that sometimes I'll be like, oh, my mom's really frustrated right now. And I think 15, 20 years ago, I would have just been like, whatever, I don't know. Like, she's not saying anything. She's just in the kitchen. I think I make it sound like some evil superpower. It's nice.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm sure as a stand-up too, it's like you really have to know the room. You know?
Yeah, I'm just finishing now like a 2-year Meisner program. So I can tell now when I could be like, oh, you're upset about something. Or like, you seem angry. When I wouldn't have thought anything really about it in the past. I'll be like, oh, they're being weird. But you can specifically pick up on when someone's not okay because, you're reading their behavior and you're intuitive to that. And I just think that's like interesting to kind of learn about, and now I do it like all the time, like noticing.
It's valuable.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I found most valuable too is getting more of an inherent understanding of when people use opposing behavior, like when someone's smiling because they hate it, or someone is sort of just seems defensive, but it's clearly just emotionally, like they seem like they're angry, but really you're like, oh, that person's just crushed.
Yeah.
Their heart is broken, like that. A lot of with the work I do, I think with stand-up, which, I've been talking to Steve a little bit. I was in a long-time group that recently broke up. And so I've been going out and trying to do like a clown version. I've been doing a bunch of shows with like costumes and it just like, you forget like how vulnerable it is to go out there with something you've worked on and have people not like it. Like, even if it's just that's just their opinion. And like, when I watch stand-ups at these shows and I just feel like, oh, I totally get it. Like some of the ones who are like the most acerbic, it's like, this is the most fragile person. This person is so sensitive.
Right.
Like anyone who's like, hey, what's going on? What the fuck? I don't care. Like, I'm like, oh, this person cares so much.
Yeah.
They care so much.
Because they're projecting that as like a defense.
It makes sense, right? Like if you're scared, you want to act like you're ready to fight. Like if you're walking down the street in the middle of the night in like New York, it's like you want to kind of puff your chest out to almost be like, yeah, no, I'm fine. But of course, like somebody comes out, you're just going to melt.
Yeah.
And especially now, because clown work is so much of, like, I think it's much easier, actually, to go out armed with the dumbest idea. Like, when we build pieces or shows, and, I work on stuff here, I work on stuff in Las Vegas, I work with a company called Spiegel World that builds, like, Vegas shows. We're always looking for the worst idea. Like, we look for the idea that seems impossible, because that is the most fun, and also the audience recognizes it's a bad idea. And so then the audience kind of starts to root for you if you get behind it. Whereas I think a lot in stand-up, there is so much of like, this is the most clever, smart, funny idea. And boy, the weight on that idea failing, when it's like, this is me really working hard to sort of construct this idea and you don't like it. I mean, it must be terrible. Like it must be a terrible feeling.
I think there's also something really interesting that happens with clowning. Is that like...
Yeah, you could totally... Yeah,
how
fine.
I'm using that, right? And...
it's actually clownang.
Where you're doing this thing that's totally vulnerable, stupid, embarrassing, and the audience is watching you, and sometimes they don't want to laugh. And if you keep going, and it's the commitment that you push through that wins people over... Because you're like, oh, they're not stopping. Like, they're fully committed to this. Right. I'm going to. So there's that, like, special thing that happens.
This
right?
magic.
It's this, like, magical kind of thing. And it's, what is it? Commitment? Or
I think it's, a lot of clowning kind of goes to this idea of, like I think I might have said it a little earlier, this primal play. Like peekaboo and hide and seek and, like this sort of like you're in a relationship with this audience and we're kind of speaking the language of nonsense, right? So you took a intensive with me and you definitely had moments where you pushed through and got big laughs, like, and you were doing real dumb stuff.
And that's so like something I really have to work against. Like, it's really uncomfortable for me to be vulnerable, but I really want to do that stuff. And the stuff that I do at home with Steven, like, we clown every night, essentially, with each other. And I am so silly with people that I'm really close with. I'd say my brother and Steven, like, see the biggest side of me, just being free and dorky and silly. But for some reason, it's so hard for me to do it in front of other people.
It's trust.
Is that what it is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess from a clown perspective, we would argue that version of Chelsea, this sort of playful, free, vulnerable version, putting yourself out there, doing the dumbest stuff, is the most powerful version of you on stage. You know, not that, and I've seen you do stand up, and you're really good at stand up, and you definitely have like I think you have to, with the way you guys come up to the Comedy Store, you do have to sort of have a command of the room, and you have to know your craft. But then once you know it and you know you can dig your way out, then I think the challenge is, how do I get myself in as much trouble as possible?
Yes.
By being silly. Yeah.
I want to do that so badly, but it's like, okay, so what's your advice for someone like me, how to inch their way into like being more free on stage? Like, what are little baby steps they can take? Or do you suggest just like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, because it is a challenging thing, because I've seen it go both ways in terms of like, you know, it's like throwing a baby in a pool. It's like, it'll learn to swim. You know, babies are natural swimmers. It's like, I'm sure there's a lot of natural swimmers who were traumatized for life.
Yeah.
But what I tend to do is I work with a lot of people out here in like stand-ups and actors, and I often find them in a position where I just see them just tipping the line, right? Like they're just dipping their toe in. And two things I do. One, you're actually going to do a show of mine in August, which I'm really excited about. So in that show, I am going to be so relentlessly cruel to you.
Okay.
You've already been live directed by me in class, but like now the idea is you're going to be put in front of this audience, and I'm just going to, every little mistake you make, I'm going to be like, what are you doing? You're making a fool of yourself. And in this moment, it's like the performer can go two ways, right? The performer can get defensive, or the performer can simply look at the audience and be the underdog and work harder and push through. And in doing so, subvert me by doing the dumbest thing even more, right? So that's the one thing I do, is I have a style of live directing that's very much teasing and playful.
It works though.
Yeah.
Because it's not malicious.
No.
There's something like but it's also like when I took your class and, you know, you say things like, you know, you're gently pushing in a teasing manner. We're all in it together.
Right.
And you really sense that with what you're saying and with everyone else who's there. So, and we're all doing all this dumb stuff. So it doesn't feel like a personal attack or a put on. And if it's anything that feels like that, that's probably just that person who feels like extra sensitive, and that's their shit.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's all, and you said it too, like, it's all a game. Like,
yeah.
You know, my like introduction to like live performance was professional wrestling. Okay. So when I was in my mid-20s, I worked for a company called World Championship Wrestling.
Where is that?
It was based in Atlanta, and it was WWE's
okay, I'm like spelling
competitor.
it out in my head.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You weren't just spelling it out in your head. You were mouthing the letters, just so you know. And at a time, we were actually beating them, and you know, it was like probably the most prodigious time in the history of pro wrestling in terms of the number 1 and 2 shows on cable were pro wrestling shows. And then our company, which was run by wrestlers, you know, got $50 million or so in debt and fell apart, was actually purchased by Vince McMahon. It was really a tragic ending. But what I learned there, and it wasn't a lesson that I even truly understood until I started doing the clowning stuff, was, we're all in this together. Like, there's only one goal here, which is to entertain this audience. And no different than a professional athlete goes. A professional athlete is never like, I got mud on my pants. Oh, look how muddy my pants are.
Yeah.
It's like, of course not. Because you just have one goal, which is to win this game. You have one goal, and we're all in it together. And as an announcer, my goal was to support the guys in the ring. And the guys in the ring, their job was to support each other in order to create an experience for an audience.
And I don't know anything about wrestling, but wrestling is like it's staged performance.
It's performative. It's very physical. I'd say no different than sports, that there's like real contact, but it's staged. You know, the really good wrestlers improvise. You know, they kind of put the match together on the spot, you know, whispering to each other and using simple. Yeah, like that was the tradition for decades. And only recently, I'd say in the last 20 years, when the stakes got higher and, you know, the deals got bigger, and WWE specifically, which is the leader, then it became very much like going over the match and rehearsing the match. But the greats from the early days, they would just get in the ring with, there was 3 people in the ring. You have, you know, your 2 opponents, and you have a referee, and they're all working together. they're all working together to tell a story.
Wow.
You know, even the referee has a very specific job in telling the story, which is sort of to really highlight when the heel or the bad guy's doing things wrong, or to sort of sell the tension of a near fall, like a near pin. And when you watch wrestling, these guys, part of it is getting the shit kicked out of you, or the perception of that. Like, there's no, like, I mean, sometimes actually there are guys who never want to get beat up, but that's their shit, like you said, with the stand-up.
Yeah.
But like the greats, the guys who are they are excellent at getting their asses kicked. Uh-huh. Offense is a secondary thing in wrestling. What makes you money is how you lose.
Really?
Absolutely, because in the moments where your opponent is dominating you, so as a heel in that moment, that's when the audience it's most excited. Because you're the bad guy and you're getting your ass kicked. Finally, you know, the comeuppance. And as the good guy, when you're getting your ass kicked, that's when they root for you. These are the two most important things, is the payoff with the bad guy finally getting his due, and the good guy being the ultimate underdog, working from underneath and somehow winning. And so as I started to perform, I'm like, oh, we're all in this together. Like, even with this audience, like, nothing this audience can do to me should distract me from my overall goal, which is to win over this audience. And if I walk away and I don't win them over, it's not personal. It's just another game I played. Like, we talk a lot about game, which is, I think, a big improv term too, but it's all just a game. When you go out and you take a pratfall, or you do stand up with like 40 Skittles in your mouth and it just bombs, it's like still teaching you a new way to play the game. Like, it's not Chelsea is no good. It's Chelsea is trying new things to see if she can please this audience in a unique way that they have not been pleased, and sort of identify herself as her own comedian doing her own thing. You know, I think that's part of the culture of stand-up that has been so interesting to me, which is the same as the culture of like long-form improv, which is it's not hard to want to be like your heroes, or see people do it right and want to do it that way, or think there's a right way to do it. You know, these are all very safe feelings, right? Oh, there's a way. You know, if I can only get the patter this way. I've been going out and doing this bit recently where I write these horrendous jokes. I mean, the worst jokes. And I come to venues in a bomb vest.
Yeah, I saw the picture of that.
So here's the premise of this bit, which has been like, I knew it would work. I was just like, wonder why no one does this. Is I stumble into, with no microphone and a cop's badge. And I'm just like, I'm a cop. Some psycho put this vest on me. He's making me do whatever he says. And he has my baby brother. So I got to do what he says. And I keep telling the audience, I'm going to keep you safe. Don't worry. I'm going to keep you safe. And then finally I pull out, he wants me to read these jokes. And then I read these terrible jokes I wrote. And I react to each one. I'm like, oh, you motherfucker. And it's like, it's never failed. Like, and it's like, because I'm not afraid to fail.
Yeah.
I'm chasing it. Like, I want to fail as big as possible, because I know even in the pursuit of digging myself out of this hole, either way I win. If I just fail and can't get myself out, the audience is like, oh, this poor bastard. Like, he's really trying. And if I somehow magically pull myself out, then I'm Houdini.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how I look at things. I'm like, oh, as long as I'm willing to be completely vulnerable and show them me at my worst, I cannot lose, you know.
You have the most positive, best perspective of any comedian that I know. Did you always feel this way, or did you work your way? Like, how did you come to this sort of like I don't know.
Not
perception.
To say
now
like,
I'm bullshitting, trying to figure. I'm trying to. You know when you try to say something in an intelligent way, and then you just.
Yeah.
I just checked out for that.
It's good though, because I wish that you should.
You know what I'm saying?
You should videotape this, because
I know
your
I need
confidence when you start,
and
then you just see your whole body shrivel like a grape, becoming a raisin. It's like you're like, oh no, I'm too far.
I know, and then I just fizzled out, and I was like, fuck it. You know what I mean?
When I did all that wrestling stuff, I didn't see the big picture. Like, I knew the basic idea of wrestling and what we call ring psychology, but I was an announcer. I wasn't in the ring.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also want to know how you got into that, by the way. But
which is just total craziness.
Okay.
And then I came out here, and I had a partner who actually passed away, who she started taking improv classes. And so you know, improv is one of those things. I think stand-up and improv are similar in the sense that what happens is a lot of people get into it because they go to like some show, like an amateur show, and they watch and they go, I'm better than these people. Like,
right.
Whereas I think music's the opposite, right? Music is like you go and you see a band you love and you're like, I would kill to be that person.
Yes, I wonder why.
I wonder what we're
that
just
is.
like, I'm way funnier. I should do. So I went to see some of her class shows and I was like, oh, I can do this. But very much I wanted to be the funniest guy. I wanted to say the funniest things. I didn't want to move my body at all. At that time I was heavier too. And so I would avoid being physical at all costs and try to I'm a writer by trade, like that's how I've made my living for 15 years. And I spent years and years just trying to be the funniest guy on stage, and often like being so angry when I wasn't, like going home and being like, oh man, like I really bombed and like they didn't laugh. And then,
and this is with improv.
This is with improv, and this is before any of the clown stuff. And then my partner, her name was Kira, she passed away, and it was like brutal. It was like 18 months of just, from diagnosis to death was just all like it was just a devastating experience. And she had a stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and like everything we tried to do to help it only made it worse. Like it was just one of those. It was like a mudslide, like just a brutal mudslide. We just gotten a puppy. Like you couldn't paint a picture of tragedy.
And
like,
you guys moved out here together too?
We hadn't. I met her, and she was local. She had grown up out here, and I'm from New Jersey, and we just hit it off, and we were both kind of in this she had just come back from South America, and she was kind of starting her job. She wanted to be an actor, and I came out here to be a writer after all the wrestling stuff, and we just really connected, and we moved. She had a pretty good job, and she bought a house out in Woodland Hills. We moved out. We got a puppy, and then like everything. We both lost weight. We felt great, and then she got this diagnosis, and like honestly, those 18 months, like I only remember bits and pieces. Like it was rough. And in that time, I already started doing comedy with more of an appreciation for, I get to be in front of people and like whether they laugh or not. I mean,
during this process,
her mom would come watch her because I'd watch her all day and write. And then so a few nights a week I would go do improv shows, or I do scripted like Spank type shows at UCB, which are just these little like sketch shows or whatever. And I already as a performer, things changed because I was just so grateful. I was so grateful to get on stage. I wasn't like, and it wasn't my career either. It was just this job. And then she passed, and after a few months, I started getting back into improv again just to get out of the house. But I knew immediately things had changed because I just didn't care. And I don't mean apathy. I just didn't care if people liked what I was doing or not, because an audience loving me or hating me seemed so small in the grander scheme of like, who cares? Like,
how many years in did you feel that way?
I'd say at this point, 6 years. I was 6 years in, and I started doing, and then I started working with this guy named Juzo Yoshida with this thing called Jetso, and he was this Japanese national, and going on stage with him almost guaranteed we fail because he speaks English well, but he doesn't have the cultural references, and he's just a strange, funny guy. He's just so you would do things on stage, and he'd always do something to shock you, and the audience loved it. And I was like, so I was starting to be like, oh, there's actually more real estate here in failure, because we all have in common getting things wrong. Like there's a finite amount of right answers and an infinite amount of ways to do things wrong. So if we can play in the arena of wrong, we have so many more choices. But the big turning point was, as I was sort of out with Juzo and doing shows again, there was this group called Wet the Hippo. And they were run by this guy named John Gilkey, and they started doing. So when you do these indie improv shows, it's a shit show. It's like a bunch of students who aren't very good at it and half committed, and imagine just hours of just people doing state scenes at Applebee's. It's agony. Everyone's just trying to survive. Everyone's just trying to get on stage and survive and not make a fool of themselves, which of course is the worst sort of mentality. And then these guys would go up, and this guy John Gilkey would live direct them. And they would try the craziest things, and over half the time, they would not work. And the more they failed, the more John Gilkey and these guys would laugh. They were so thrilled at how much we hated what they were doing. And I couldn't stop watching. Like, I started going just to see them perform.
Yeah.
At these little nothing, like they weren't in any big theater. And then I found out that this guy taught a drop-in class. And so I went to this class, and honestly, walking in, I still remember like what people were warming up and my stomach dropped. I hated it. Like everyone was acting so foolish and silly and
like from the jump start,
from Jump Street, like right off the bat. We weren't even started yet, and people were just like doing funny walks.
And you're like, I hate that person.
Fuck these
I know what
people.
you mean.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, grow up. Like I hated it. And by the way, like anything, like good stand up, bad stand up, good clown, bad clown. A lot of this stuff I'd still hate. If I saw it today. Like it's not like
it's like cringeworthy in the best way,
right? But at that point, for me, like my mentality was like, you're bombing.
It's like you're just comfortable doing that.
Yeah, like
I want to do that, but you are.
I don't think I was even as far into it as I want to do that. I was just like, oh, these idiots, and they were literally idiots. Like that's the name of the, and he was live directing. I'd never seen that before. And he was throwing his shoe at people and telling them they were terrible. Mm-hmm. And like looking back, it was obviously playful. But just where I was as a person, I saw this and I'm like, who does this fucking guy think he is? Mm-hmm. And I must have had a look on my face. And he goes, is something wrong? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me, you're the big shot here. Like, and I really started ripping into this guy. Because I was older, you know, like.
How old were you?
I'd say like 41.
Okay.
And so a lot of these people were in their 20s and 30s, and I'm like, this guy in his 50s is picking on these people, making them look like idiots. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were, obviously you're a person to be taken seriously. I'm so embarrassed as I recall the story because I was like, yeah, I am someone to be taken seriously. Like, he's just fucking with me.
Yeah.
And he goes, why don't you go behind that curtain? He says, come out and show us what it looks like for someone who should be taken seriously. Just show us some, and I'm like, okay. And like again, not in my head, I'm like, I will do that. And I went behind this curtain and I walked out with my chest puffed out, and everyone laughed so hard. Like it was the biggest laugh and it was not, and I was so hurt by this. Like I was so embarrassed. And I didn't even get up once again in that drop in. And I went home and I was just seething. And as time passed, I was like, why were they laughing? Like I couldn't stop thinking about like what was funny about this.
Yeah.
And so I went back and then it started to make sense. Like, but that was the big turning point was like, oh, maybe I don't have complete control over what an audience truly wants to see from me. Like I don't necessarily have to pander to what they want, but wouldn't it make sense for me to play into what they see when I'm on stage?
What do you mean what they see?
Well, I think like I've just learned to really celebrate. Like I am somebody who my whole life I've wanted to be the expert. Like I'm the kind of guy who like take a swim class and immediately be like, I wonder how I can be a lifeguard. Do you know what I mean? Like I always want to be the guy, the expert. I do want people to watch me perform and think I'm amazing. Like that's a fault of character. And the more I started being like, well, what if I just give them what they want? And then let them see me get my legs kicked out from under me. What if I just come up here and play this bombastic character and allow what's definitely going to happen, which is I'm not going to be able to pay off this promise. And once I started like, even this, like I'm here now, like 20 years ago, the idea of me wearing like a tank top, like the idea of like something's clinging to my body, I've been so embarrassed. And I was like, I should go out there and play into that. Like I should go out there like in tight clothes, like everything I could do to highlight what I felt were my greatest weaknesses, I did. And every time I pushed deeper, it would get a bigger payoff. And then it became like, oh, I just need to let them see me. Like you talked about with your brother and Steven, like, oh, if I just let them see me, because this is who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine when you're screwing around and being goofy, that's the truest version of yourself.
Yeah. It feels like the real Chelsea, so to speak.
And it's like, well, I'll just show them that. Like, and then I don't have to manufacture anything. Mm-hmm. And then over time, you start to develop, like maybe like you start to understand, and that's wrestling too. Like great wrestlers are just heightened versions of themselves. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to create a complete persona that isn't you, because then you're always running things through this filter of like, well, what would this stranger do? But if it's really like, if you really play into your deepest insecurities, you don't have to invent anything. You know exactly what bothers you. And, you know, I built a whole sort of, my whole teaching career, my live directing, all the work I've gotten has been built on this idea of coming out as high status and allowing things to happen where I lose my status, like where the audience sees me get my just desserts, but it's play. Like they love me and I love them, you know, like, so it's not like, oh, fuck this guy. They're just like, isn't it fun to watch somebody this arrogant sort of get their just desserts? And, yeah. And then it was like, once I knew that, then I was like, oh, this is, it's not easy now, but what I'll say is I know which direction to push. And it still means that I get in a lot of trouble, and there's times I can't get myself out of it, no matter how much I commit to it. But it's like, that's fine, because then they just never get to see me win, and they love it. You know,
they like it either way.
They like it either way.
Yeah. What do you think about so in terms of stand-up, when, you know, a bunch of comics go out and the audience just isn't giving them anything, and it seems like sometimes, you know, and a lot of people will be like, oh, the audience sucked. But then some people will say, well, you didn't try hard enough. You know, it's your job. What do you think about that?
I used to, if you asked me this question a year ago, I go, it's always the performer's responsibility. And to a degree, I think that's true. But I had been working on this show in Vegas called Opium. It's at the Cosmopolitan, and there's a super fun variety show, some of the best performers in the world. And I've been like a comedy consultant on the clown parts, the hosting parts. And man, there's just some nights, you know, these audiences come in drunk and sunbaked, and like they're just not there. And you know, part of that process has been simplifying everything, dumbing it down so that no matter what condition someone's in, that they can be jarred into laughter. The way I'd answer this is, no matter what happens, don't get angry at the audience. Don't get angry at the audience. Don't get in that habit, because now you've created this excuse for everything. Because you know what? There will be nights that you go out and this audience has drank too much and they're shitty, or they just came from another thing. I mean, I think there's also, by the way, the difference between an audience fucked me and an audience member fucked me. Very different, right?
Totally.
Just on their phone, talking, screaming, excuse me, pardon. Like, there's just a heckler. Like, there's just a rabble-rouser. And, like, that's different. But the idea that as a group, like, unless this audience is yelling punch-down shit, like racist stuff and, you know, misogynist stuff, then fuck them. But beyond that, you should always go out there being like, I am not going to quit until I get this audience behind me. And like, until you get the light, like until you walk off stage, that's what you're trying to do. And if you walk off and you didn't pull it off, great. But don't build the muscle of, well, it's not my fault. This audience fucked me tonight. Like, how does that possibly help you down the road?
Totally.
You know, it's like in wrestling, there's this term called working from underneath. And like some of the greatest good guys are baby faces. What sort of separates them is they never stop fighting. Even they get pinned, they'll lose, but they fight from bell to bell. Like even when they're on the ground, they've been beaten savagely. They're clawing at the guy's boots. Like, you know what I mean? They're throwing these like whiffing punches because they have nothing. And those guys don't ever have to win. And they can be some of the most beloved wrestlers because the audience appreciates the fact that they never quit. I think quitting or sort of deciding that it's somebody else's fault, definitely like get that out of your fucking head. Like, you know, and by the way, after the show, if you want to sit with the other comics and be like, you know, this just wasn't an audience I thought we could win. I don't know. I don't know how we could have done it. That's okay.
Yeah.
But like when you're on stage, never stop trying to like, and it is huge in stand-up. I mean, when you see the really good stand-ups, they almost always seem to be able to turn it around, you know. But also they have name and recognition. Like, what do you do when you're nobody? And I don't mean like, I just mean in the eyes of the audience.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when they don't have any sort of opinion on you? Because I think sometimes we watch, you know, the thing between process and product. Like, we watch a great clown or a great stand-up or a great performer, and the audience already assumes they're funny. You know, Steve Martin talked about it in his book a little bit. Like, he could go out and be like, good night, and everyone starts laughing. It's like, that must be funny because he said it. So then we watch that person perform, and they seem to be so carefree and not give a shit. It's like, yeah, but they've got the reputation.
Right.
We have to play like nobodies. We have to play like people that have to earn every scrap from this audience. And if you do play like that, I mean, you'll just start batting better. Like, you'll just start, like, I mean, I bomb, certainly, but like I bombed so much less than I bombed 6 years ago. Like, now it's pretty rare. But I just bombed. I was doing this show in Thousand Oaks, and it was at a ballroom dance studio. And I was working on this new idea of like me improvising performance art with the audience. And I walked in, the entire audience was like 60 and over. Yeah. Not my like, and And I was doing this really bombastic character, and I'm like, I'm here to create art, and they're all nodding like, yes. I'm like, no, you're supposed to be like, what a asshole. But they're like, yes, we're going to get some art. And they gave me the suggestion. It was like Forgetful Pigeon. And so I just started, there's music, and I start dancing around, and I'm flying, and they're just like, not sure. And then I was just like, who am I? Right? Like, so silly. And they just stone-faced. Nothing. And then I'm like,
No one laughed.
No one laughed. And I was like, I literally went, like, couldn't believe it. I thought they would just laugh at the audacity of how dumb this was. And then I was like, where am I? Nothing. Cut to, I had 15 minutes. Cut to about 14 minutes later. I had not gotten a laugh.
Oh my God.
I'm dripping with sweat. I played like a Cockney pigeon vendor. Like, I've done every cheap trick I know. And finally, just in the last 30 seconds, there was this woman in the front row, and I took her hand, and I do a lot of like powerlifting because like a lot of my clown stuff is lifting people up. I grabbed her by her hips and I lifted her over my head, and I said, "You're a pigeon now." And she started waving her arms, and she's like 65, and the audience tentatively just like clapped a little bit, like, I guess this is because I'm running around this ball, like, you're the pigeon now. They're like, I guess this is a good finish. And I was so grateful that I got that. Like, if I had quit, like, that was so satisfying that at some point they're like, I guess we got to applaud this guy once.
Yeah.
Because he's working so hard. It's like, why wouldn't you fight to the end for that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How do you not come off needy, but like really wanting to give them like a good show, sort of what you're...
Well, me personally, I always come out and I tell them, I know exactly what you need. Like,
you said that verbally?
I mean...
Oh, that's your energy.
That's my energy.
And what does that look like?
They come out with your chest, good posture.
Confident.
And talk about being a teacher, talk about being an entertainer. I have this line I use sometimes where I go, sometimes my students ask me, Chad, I let my students call me by my first name. Which sometimes gets a laugh, rarely. I think that's so funny. And then I go, are you ever scared that you're too fearless? And I tell them, yes, I'm terrified. Right? So it's like, they're like, wait, what? And and I go, so tonight I'm going to take a real risk, and I'm just going to show you me. But like the whole energy is that I think I'm going to crush. Right? So that's how I play. That's my personal thing. I mean, pandering never works. It never does. Like, you could get a couple laughs on, you might get a front end laugh on pandering, but eventually they lose respect for you. It's a courtship. It's no different than somebody at a bar coming up to you. And like at first, if they're like really giving you compliments, you might be like, oh, this feels nice. But after a while, you're like, get some self-respect. The key is to commit to your dumb ideas, not try to translate what they think is a dumb idea. So I don't really run into it because like everything's coming from me. And if whether they like it or not, if they hate it, then I got to figure out a way for them to love it. And if they love it, I got to figure out a way to keep the ball in the air. We say this thing in clown, which is when you're on stage, you're doing one of two things. You're either saving the show or you're stealing the show. There's no other state of being. So either the show's in trouble and you have to save it, or someone else is getting more attention than you and you have to steal it. But there's no like cruise control. There's no surrender. It's just two states, both of which are highly active. Like, you're never satisfied. Once you get that laugh, you want to get that laugh for an hour. And if they hate it, you got to figure out a way for them to love it. That's it.
What you said about saving and stealing, I immediately just thought of a scene that I was in when I did your workshop. And it was kind of like awkward because I felt like I was in a scene with someone who didn't seem like she was like comfortable. We were doing like the two of us together competing against each other.
I remember this.
And I didn't know if I was doing the right or the wrong thing because I felt like I was supposed to double down, but then I just felt like it was awkward because
I remember the scene actually.
And I didn't know what the right thing to do was in that situation. If I was supposed to double down to like encourage her to like do it, or if I needed to pull back, like I didn't.
I think what I tend to do is I tend to think less about what the next move is and more like what is the general state of energy of the room. So if the audience just loves me doing this thing and this person is floundering, I don't give a shit. Like,
we can't care about anyone else. No. We have to just focus on ourselves.
Well, we
right?
have to focus on the audience loving it.
Yeah.
So it's less about like, I mean, you do love that you're getting all this positive reinforcement. Don't get me wrong. But what you're focused on, like, okay, so we're talking about the performer and the actor, right? So the actor does need to sort of think like, well, where's this as a big picture? What are we doing here? But the performer, yeah, you're like, they love it. They love me. This person doesn't know what they're doing. What do I care? They're laughing. Like, but in that decision, you can evoke a change in the audience because eventually they're going to start feeling really bad for this person, and you're going to be the bad guy.
I know,
which is great. That's the best.
Okay,
because then being the bad guy is the best. That's the other thing from wrestling, that people don't want to be the bad guy, and the audience loves to boo more than they love to cheer. The audience loves to boo. It's like even more cathartic than cheering. So the idea that you come out and they love you and they're like, oh, she's just bullying this girl, and eventually they don't like you, what a great opportunity for you. Because then you can
win them back.
Win them back. Okay. Or also be like, I'm helping her.
Yeah,
you love me, right? Like, because then we know, oh no, you're a piece of shit. Like, they know, but they love you for it because you're working hard. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, like you just keep pushing into it until it, like, two things happen. You push into it, they love you so much, then the funny part becomes this one person. It's like watching a 6th grade recital. Like, if you have one really active kid dancing and then you have one kid who's standing completely still, that might be the joke. The joke might be that Chelsea's the star and this other woman is just frozen, and we laugh at just this absurdity, this nonsense. The joke also can be like that you're working so hard and we love you, and then finally this person just like claps their hands and we give them so much love because we want them, because they're such underdogs. And then you're like, what the fuck? I'm the star.
Yeah.
So like you're just playing the game. It's just a game you're playing.
Okay.
Like, and the game's rules will be defined as it moves forward. So, I mean, I've definitely seen where, I often do like purposely play the heel, the villain, where I'll go out and I'll do all this stuff and the audience will laugh. But I know it's coming, that the other people I'm on stage with, the audience is going to want to see them succeed. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. Audiences in general, I think, want to see the performers succeed.
No matter, yeah.
There's always like some disgruntled wannabe performer, like they loom about.
Yeah, who's like not funny.
Yeah, they're like, I should be up there.
Right.
So, but as a whole, audiences do not pay to go to shows to watch performers fail.
That's a good point.
They don't. Like, why would you? You go to see sports to see your team win. Mm-hmm. You go to see comics to laugh. You go to the circus to be wowed. You're not like, I hope they disappoint me tonight.
Yeah, that's so true.
And yet, I think we get lost because our feelings get hurt, but they want to laugh, and they might be tired and grumpy and this and that. And, also, this, sometimes just the waitress hasn't gotten the drinks out. Like, you're fighting all these other, but ultimately, they came here to be entertained. So I'll definitely go out and often just set myself up to fail, like set myself up so someone else can come steal my fire. Like it's almost like when you're in the Tour de France and like you're letting that person ride behind you. You're forward, you're the star, but they're riding in your and then eventually they just pass you because they haven't had any wind resistance for the whole race, and so they do nothing. They just walk out and the audience is cheering, and all I have to do is sell that I'm heartbroken. I have to be like, oh my God. No, it's me, and they love it. They're like, yeah, to me, I'm trying to play with these archetypes that are like as old as man is, which is, we want to cheer for the underdog, we want to see the bully slain, and as a stand-up, that's true, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you have a really confident, there's a guy who does this bubble act in Opium, and he's amazing, and these bubbles, like he'll make a bubble that looks like a carousel.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, he does the most amazing stuff. He's the nicest guy. And here's the best part. This guy, he comes out in this big burly suit, handsome kind of, I think he's British or Australian. I'm not sure. I hate to say that, but I'm not sure. He's ripped. He's like one of the best acrobats in the world. He just has his shoulders hurt. So he has this bubble act. So already he's one of the best acrobats, and he has this bubble act. And let me tell you, the best reaction he gets for that whole bubble act, he's creating these delicate, beautiful bubbles, is when a bubble bursts, and he just looks at the audience and goes, I fucked that one up. And
he says that?
Yeah. And he's dressed as this gentleman. He goes, I fucked that one up, with an accent. And the audience roars.
Yeah.
They're so thrilled for this moment of humanity. And that's what we, like, they want to see. If we're confident, they want to see us fall. And if we're sheepish, they want to see us, like, sort of raise up. And like, they want to see the underdog win. you know.
Yeah.
And if you look at comedy that way and not as this like indictment on how smart you are or how funny you are, and simply that you're playing a game, that you know this audience wants to have this experience, then like what is there to lose? Like you can be as committed. Like this stuff, like you should go out. You're seasoned enough that you should just go to a show that you're like, I don't give a shit about this show, and just do 10 minutes of the dumbest stuff. And like if they don't laugh once, realize that you left and nothing changed, and you're still married and you still have an apartment and you still had a show the next night, and be like, oh right, there's like this thing I'm scared of, this failure is an invisible, meaningless thing that I create, you know.
Yeah, after you kind of found that, do you ever revert back, like have a night where you get afraid and you tighten up with the whole failure, or do you think once you made it over the other side, you're there?
I think,
and was it a process to keep yourself there?
I really do. This Team Jetso that I was on, you know, we did like almost 600 shows before we retired, and by the end, it was like I felt like I knew the formula well enough that we can go up and make, because we made these shows up, so we didn't even have a script. But I'd say like there were still days where, and I guess this is what I've gotten better at. Like, so part of that act was that Juzo did do whatever he wanted. Like he just followed every impulse, and the audience loved seeing me try to save the show. Like he would take the show in all kinds of directions, and I'd try to save it. And there were still nights where he would do something that surprised me, and I would hate it. I'd be like, no, we have this good thing going. And what I've gotten better at is just being like, just show them that. Like, just let the audience see that you hated that. You don't hate them. You don't hate Juzo. But you're a little kid who didn't get what he wanted. And like, I've gotten way better. As long as I can do that, as long as I can let the audience see my frustration without the audience reading that as me being angry at them or quitting. I pretty much, like, I can say, like, it's been a long time since I've had, like, that show, the Thousand Oaks show, that was a straight up bomb, but I never quit. But as long as I'm like, just let them see you, I'm okay. And I do feel like, but that's a philosophy. Like, that's a way to, and, you know, I'm sure I've got a bunch of bad shows coming, you know, like, and that's okay. Cause like, I don't know, I tend to remember those shows and fondly, like now, you know, like I think of the shows where I bombed the worst and like it makes me laugh the hardest.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I think that's where you have to get. And so it's not about reverting or forgetting. It's about rewriting what you value. And so,
what do you mean rewriting what you value?
Like if what you need from an audience is them just to love you unconditionally, and you need to be a rock star and have them cheer for you, then you've got a rough road ahead of you.
Right.
But if you need to have a real experience with an audience, good or bad, like evoke a real reaction from them, good or bad, and that's what you value, that you didn't just skate by on easy stuff or cheap tricks, but instead had this experience that you'll remember and they'll remember. And I might remember it like at the water cooler tomorrow being like, Jesus Christ, I saw this comedian Chelsea Skidmore and I don't know what the fuck she was doing. She was all over the place. I was so confused. Like that should be as great a value to you as, oh my God, Chelsea was so funny last night. Because you affected them. They left with the part of you. And I think if you do that, like you won't revert back because you're chasing something different. Does that make any sense?
Like more memorable.
You're just chasing a connection. You just want to connect with this audience and try and take chances and be the authentic version of yourself. You know, you want to let them see you and have an opinion, and you don't need to control that opinion.
Yeah, so it's letting go and control.
Yeah.
With connections, so I guess with stand-up, I mean, I don't think, maybe it's not any different. With improv or with clowning stuff, if you're just coming out and connecting with the audience, I feel like sometimes with stand-up, you can have time of just standing up there when you come out and not saying anything and staring at the audience. But for me personally, I feel like a rush to get started a little bit. What do you think?
It's tough though, because those rooms sort of create that like I wouldn't say that like, oh, you just like, I think there are like rooms that like you have to start working.
Yeah.
Like I just think that's a reality. It's just like these clubs, like there's so much noise and drinking, and you have to
get their attention. You have to get going. So what is your advice about connecting with the audience?
I mean, like I say, I always like cheat and like I take forever, you know, like I come out and stare at everybody. But like I would say in that case, it's like, you like don't get ahead of yourself in terms of the content. Like you can immediately come out and say something and get an impression, but like don't think like those lines are what's going to save you because it's like you have to see them. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like, yeah, you know, I mean, I'm usually refreshed if someone comes out and stand up and like, again, not that they're wasting my time, but they really have an agenda. Like they're coming out and they really, whether they're really sad or really pumped up, that they're bringing some intention, you know? But I would say like the jokes, like ultimately they're just deciding if they like you or not. Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Like the jokes, they're secondary.
I feel like they decide in like 3 seconds if they like you or not. And then, you know, you can always win them over. But like sometimes it takes a couple minutes if you feel like, oh, they don't like me. Right. This might be in my head and something that I tell myself, but I truly feel like I normally dress down, you know? I think I do really good when I'm not wearing a lot of makeup, when I'm in a sweatshirt and jeans and I'm not in a cute outfit or like a t-shirt. I've noticed personally when I dress up more, if I'm in something cuter, if my hair and makeup are done, then I feel like they don't like me as much. And I don't know if I'm creating that in my head, but I don't want that to be the case. And I see plenty, you know, and I would say I'm attractive for a comic, but I do see plenty of other comics who are attractive, who are dressed up and they do just fine. So then I'm like, am I creating this or like...
Yeah, is it how you feel when you're wearing makeup and the clothes? And less about, like, it's not like a zero-sum thing where it's like, when I get dressed up, it means this, and when I dress down, maybe when you're dressed down... you feel like a less of a pressure. Like
I feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and if you're feeling more comfortable on stage. Yeah, because like I said, like I certainly, like I think you have to own that energy. You know, like if you're dressed up and you like to be dressed up and you like when you look a certain way, I think an audience won't necessarily turn on you for that. I think,
right.
But if you're more comfortable dressed a different way, then that means you're less comfortable. Like both have to be true. And no one wants to see someone uncomfortable on stage.
No one.
You know, do you remember too what we talked about, like little things like, you know, I'm always telling people to stop, like to keep their mouth slightly open, like not to have their mouth closed or...
Wait, did we talk about that?
We talked about it in class.
I didn't remember that.
Well, there's this just very basic thing where, you know, if your teeth are clenched or closed... that the audience reads that as aggression, like no different than when if you see a dog and it's panting as opposed to a dog with its mouth shut. We've all had that feeling, you're walking towards a dog and it's panting and then all of a sudden it shuts its mouth and we're like, is this dog going to do something? So like the audience, it's so interesting because audiences are much dumber than we think and much smarter than we think. Like in one way, an audience reads all these micro things that we do, like the slightest discomfort. The audience knows how we're breathing. They don't know they know. But like the audience knows when someone's a shallow breather on stage, or they know when someone's holding a bunch of tension in their back, or they know when we might just purse our lips for a second, they read it because it's like, that's just biological. And at the same time, audiences can be really dumb. Like we might try to construct something, and if we give the audience too many things to equate on stage, then they start thinking about it. And then the minute they're thinking, they're not with you. The minute they're doing any kind of equation, they're like, what was that? And then they miss something, and before you know it, the rhythm, the connection's broken. But I would say, like, probably when you go out dressed down, immediately they read, this is a person who's comfortable and wants to be funny. And probably right now, for whatever reason, when you're more dressed up, your own shit is involved, where you're giving off an energy of like you're not as comfortable, and they don't know what the fuck it is. Like they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
You know? People also, half the time when we're disappointed on stage, we're disappointed with ourselves. That reads the same way as disappointed with an audience. It doesn't read any different. They're not like, they're mad at themselves. They're like, this person's disappointed and it's probably me. So fuck them. Like, yeah, like anytime we give any sort of negative energy, an audience just assumes that they're involved in that. You know, and I would say that because it's like, Yeah, and you, oh, by the way, you should, if you're more comfortable, why wouldn't you just dress down anyway? Like,
Yeah.
if you're more comfortable,
Whatever.
That way, yeah, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know.
What about being comfortable in silence?
Well, I think the idea of like tension and release is something that like requires time to get used to. Like, I very much like long periods of silence and tension. I mean, even that dumb, I was talking to you about the bomber bit. Like, when I run in, I go, nobody panic. And I walk out and I am in, you've seen the vest. It looks real.
Yeah.
Nobody panic. I'm a cop. There's always about 30 seconds of just everyone's just quiet. And then I start slowly going to every person I can get to and be like, it's going to be okay.
And that, I can't imagine how funny that
I'm a
is.
cop. And then they start to be like, so, but to me, I want that tension.
Yeah.
Silence is tension. You know, comedy is breaking tension. Yeah, like, and you do see like really good comics, you know, they just sit in the story. They're just telling a story and they're comfortable with just being engaging. What we don't want is an audience not to care. So if they're in silence but engaged, or they're in silence and frustrated with us, it doesn't matter. If they're in silence and apathetic and starting to check their phone, now we've got a problem.
Right.
You know, and I think,
rude.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. This and that, or start having a conversation. It's like, okay, now there's a problem. But if they're all, and that's the thing, when you're really looking at an audience, if their eyes are on me and they're quiet, and also I have an agenda, even if it's just, I've been working on this bit, which I don't think I'll ever really make it, but like, I claim I'm there to give the eulogy for a dead child. And like, it's this moment where like, I can tell they're like, don't do this. The audience is like, please don't do this. But I also feel like by my rules, I'm like, you totally want to hear what I have to say here. So as far as I'm concerned at this juncture, I'm winning because you are desperate to see how far I take this. And even though you're quiet, you're hanging on my every word.
But you're able to do certain things with your face that like you can read your face.
No
without
Botox, Chelsea.
I know, you can see.
No, I see you post about it. I see you post about it all the time.
I know. I hate getting I got Botox, but it's hard because I feel like people don't understand how I feel about what I'm saying on stage sometimes. It's a whole fucking thing. I know. Anyways, I lost my train of thought now.
Well, you're saying,
remember what I was saying?
You were saying like I could do certain things with my face in terms of...
You have a very expressive face. I know that I have an expressive face.
Yeah,
but
you totally do.
I definitely do. But I think I could learn to use it in a better way. You use yours in a very smart way. And like, you're very in on everything with the audience. And you say a lot like with your eyes. You know, you can... Whatever you were just saying about like, but you do want to hear this, and you were just doing that to me with your face. Like, I could see you just have this like really playful physicality that you use that makes the audience, I think, feel uncomfortable. Like, I feel like you're doing something specific to...
You know, I think it's just...
You know what I mean?
I think it's just getting rid of the noise. Like,
okay, what is that?
What I mean by that is like, if I'm not worried about how I'm doing or this and that, I'm only sending one message to you, what I'm talking about right now. And like, okay, so I saw, what was Steven's mom's dog?
Lucy.
So that dog looked, I mean...
So cute. We want to get the same one.
Insanely cute. So I don't know if you've had this experience, or Lucy's is like my dog. There are times my dog just wants to play with me. And I could do anything. And that dog, my dog Bandit, will act like I'm playing. So like, I'll be sitting on the couch and I go to reach for like a LaCroix, and then she'll posture, or she'll be like, oh, is this it? And like, that's how I think about what I want to be on stage. It's like, everything is me sending you a signal that we're playing. You know, like my face, my reactions, even when I'm playing sad emotions, it's like we're engaged in this play together. You know, I think for me, a lot of when I did Jetso for all those like 6 years, so much of it, or 7 years almost, so much of it was just looking at the, kind of going back to what we talked about. Juzo's doing whatever he wants. He's destroying the show. I'm making air quotes because he's just having fun. And I just look at the audience and I just want them to see how I feel about it. Like really just, that's all I want to do. I don't have any agenda past that. And I do feel like doing that for like all those like almost 600 shows and doing these other clown shows, I've gotten good at just removing everything that isn't important and letting them just see one thing. So letting them just see my disappointment, letting them see my jubilation, but not in my, but you can't do that if you're thinking 20 things. Do you know what I mean? You don't.
Staying present.
You have to be present.
I have a hard time with that.
Neither
sometimes.
of us are
I'm like,
so skilled. Like a sociopath can do that. A sociopath can be like, I'm going to kill this person later. And laughing at a cocktail party. But us, if we thought that, there would be like our eyes would widen. Like that's what I was talking about, these micro expressions, these sort of little things. So if you're just present in the moment with what's going on and talking to them and expressing those emotions, and they don't have to sift through other little things happening with your body and your breath, they'll read it, you know. But if in your mind you're like, I hope this works, then they read both.
Right.
So they read like, if you're like, oh, I'm really sad about this, and you're also like, oh, I hope this works, you're sending both. You can't help it. So you just have to be sad. Or you just have to be like, you just have to be so present and singular that the audience only can read one thing.
Do you get bothered when you notice everybody laughing and then there's one person in the front who just doesn't know how to smile and have fun? And it took me a while. At first, I would always just be facing that person trying to win them over. And then I was like, it took me a while to be like, what am I doing? Fuck it. There's so many people over here who are laughing.
Yeah.
Turn and shift over to them and give them the show. Because this person, for whatever reason, maybe isn't comfortable smiling. Maybe it's too, you know what I mean? They're uncomfortable laughing. Maybe they don't think it's funny.
They euthanize their dog in the morning. Like, you don't know.
What does that mean?
They had to put to sleep. Like, I'm saying you don't know. Like, you have no idea what shit.
Yeah.
We have a name for so I learned this very early, and I try to build this into all my bits, is a lot of times the reason I start slow is because I'm reading the room, right?
Okay.
And like, again, like, you know, you can have a room of 20 people, you can have a room of 300 people. You get to a point like Kevin Hart stage where like there's no reading a room.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many people there.
Right.
But like, even like what's at the Comedy Store? What's the big room? What's the big main room? You can read that room for sure. You could sort of because all you have to do is look at about 20 people to read a room, and I find what are called hot spots. Like right off the bat, I know who wants me to be there. Like, and it doesn't mean that they're smiling and happy. They're just very much like, my job is to watch you, and I hope this goes well. And then I know the guy you're talking about, who just looks like he just got kicked in the nuts in the bathroom.
Are you fucking having fun?
Why are you here?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that guy.
I know, right?
Because if you know where your hotspots are and you give them attention, there's this other group. So you have like your duds and you have your hotspots, and then you have this sort of undecided. If you work the people who love you, like if you give them the lines and sort of, then the undecided people are like, I want that. Like, I want more of that. The dud, the guy who did the sort of the sociopath, like, you could spend the whole show trying to win that guy over and nothing, you know? And like, if anything, if I find a guy who's really cold, I'll use it. Like, I'll sort of see them and I'm like, oh, I guess that didn't work. Like, if I feel the audience is, because do you know how like sometimes that person, if they're positioned right in the audience, radiates this sort of negative energy.
Yes.
Like, they're not just, it's not like no one notices. They just so like super fun to sort of be like, am I right?
Yeah.
To that guy.
And fuck with them.
Fuck with them. And they'd be like, oh, okay.
And then they smile a little.
And then smile at the hot spot. Like, yeah, like, but in general, like that's only if I'm killing. Like, I have no time for that.
Yeah.
If I'm in a room where I'm like, I'm working, all I care about is the people who, and slowly but surely, if I give them enough attention, the people around them, the undecided people, are just like, I want him to look at me. I want to play. I want to also play this game. And then you win them over, and then that guy doesn't matter, you know. But if you're just like trouncing, sometimes I can remember I did a show in Philly once where I saw a guy like that in the audience, and I gave him, like, I had these American flags, and I gave him an American flag, and like gave like 4 other people an American flag, and then like halfway through the show, I just stopped and took his flag and gave it to someone else. And I went up to that guy after the show, and I'm like, hey, and he wouldn't even talk to me. He was just like, don't. Like I'm just like, oh, fuck that guy. Like, why did you come to this show?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's fun to be had playing with someone who's a grump. But for the most part, just play it like you said. You said it. You said, these people love it. Then you know what? Give them more. You know, let them know that they're being rewarded for loving it. and let other people say, like, this is what's coming to you. If you love it like they love it, I'm going to be over in your section, or I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to, like, we're going to have a connection. You know, you're always trying to bridge that sort of feeling of, like, response and reward, you know. But sometimes I'll almost break if I see someone, like if everyone's laughing and I just see one face and it's just this stone face. Honestly, that's the times I want to break the most on stage, because it just strikes me as so funny.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you here?
Well, it's so odd.
Yeah.
What about when you're playing a big room, and how you divide your attention between the audience, and how do you worry about making everyone feel special in a way that you're giving everyone a show? So, like, for example, like a couple of weekends ago, I did a weekend at the Ontario Improv, and it's a big room,
Right.
and 400 people or something. And I noticed, I'll look at everyone that I can see right in front of me, like peripheral, like, the first 100 people.
Right.
But then, I'm lucky that I had 5 shows that weekend that I started going, wait a minute, and I got to give myself a chance to be like, there's a whole other wing of 200 people on the left side, on the right side, like that I'm not even looking at them for. And then I got the chance to, kind of project out to them. And now I'm going to look over these people. And do you worry about giving something to everyone, or do you just perform on the stage and where it goes? Do you have an opinion?
What I would say to that is, even like the show Opium, like I think there's like 350 people. It's pretty dark, And what you eventually learn how to do is, you're going to find some people in the front areas you can see. Find some connections there. And then so whatever you're getting, let's just say from the woman in the third row, when you get that from them, you just raise your head and you just look into the abyss. But hold that feeling. Like you, hold you're not you don't want to look out into the far reaches of the audience and be like, I can't see you, but I wish I could. You want to look at them like, I see you. I'm looking right at you. And what you have to your advantage is the distance makes it hard to tell who you're looking at, which is great for you. So let's just say you're working a 3/4 round room, right? Definitely find people like this is your almost like a. When they do like a primary and like a state is like, this is basically how the country feels, right? So you have sections you see, that's how the country feels. And so you read that, you read how it's going, and then you just turn that exact energy and you look out. And you look out like you totally are looking right at somebody.
Yeah.
And then it's real because you felt it. But what you want to avoid in a big room, and like I said, it gets to a point like the Kevin Hart point where it's just impossible.
Yeah.
And you're just essentially, you just try to make sure that you keep turning, like because now it's so general. But like I'd say like the room you're talking about, what would you say, like 350, 400 in that room?
If I don't feel like I'm making eye contact and connecting with people, I feel like I wasn't in my body on stage. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then it is
like,
just you doing the jokes.
Like, that was so weird. I don't know what just happened. But I do think that there's all these other people that I haven't given at least like energy towards. So yeah, I like that kind of envisioning.
Also, there's a thing that we do in clown where, like, let's just say you have a hot spot in like an area you can see clearly. You then use that hotspot to commune with the audience. So, like, you have a guy, you're like, this guy's loving it. And then you give that to you know what I mean? Like, you point at this guy and you go, and you look at the rest of the audience and be like, this guy's loving it. Like, so then it's this thing where someone is getting very individual attention, which always, sort of sets a little bit of a fire. But it's like you're sharing it with the room.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Sometimes I think a mistake people make in bigger rooms when they're trying to use these techniques is they have 4 or 5 people where they can see, and they just keep going back to those people. And then at first it's funny, but then people are like, I'm here.
Yeah.
So then it's like, think of it this way. Think of it like water cooler politics, where, like, let's just say there's 10 people around a water cooler, and you and Steven are there, and you start teasing Steven. Now, if you just look at Steven and keep teasing him, at first you'll get laughs, and then it'll start to diminish because everyone else at the water cooler starts to feel like, well, I'm here. But if your teasing is like, hey, gang, look at Steven's pants, am I right? Like, look at this guy. Like, that your teasing is all for their benefit. It's not, you're not just facilitating a relationship with him. you're making a point that's like, hey, everybody, can you believe, like, look at this guy. It's all of us against him, or it's all of us cheering him on. Like, but do you know that slight difference? It's like that difference between like, oh, I've got 3 people I'm making
inclusive.
fun of. Yeah. It's like you're bringing them in. And then when you look out to like the blackness of a wing, you're saying to them, oh, we're all teasing this guy. You guys and me, we're teasing this guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you guys and me, we're all stunned at her answer. Can you guys believe that? And then they feel like, yeah, like we're with the comedian, you know, because, you know, and this is a thing in clown, a note I give a lot. Like I'll see a bit where like they'll bring an audience member up and I'm like, well, that was great for them. That audience member had a really good time. But what about everybody else? Like if you're teasing an audience member, if you're putting them in a bad situation, you always are doing it for the benefit of the room. Like this is something being done for everybody. This isn't something being done for that person. And like if you have a small room, by the way, it doesn't matter because like you're all so close, you can see everybody else. But I think I've learned quite a bit working with Spiegel World in terms of like how they keep it so simple too. Like they just, when they look out the audience, it's just a simple, I'm perplexed, I'm embarrassed, I'm, you know, I'm cocky, like so that it reads to everywhere, you know, and it's less nuanced, you know, but at the same time, like you don't need to be as nuanced. You've got 400 people. If everyone just laughs a little bit, you're great. You know, you know what I mean? Like it's like if it's a big room and you get a mid-sized laugh from everyone, that feels amazing. You know, so like you don't have to work as hard. You know, to me, doing clown in bigger rooms is easier.
How do you incorporate clowning into stand-up, like facial expressions, without feeling like it's hacky, or do you just get over yourself? You know what I mean?
What I've been doing particularly is I've been chasing failure.
Okay.
Because I think so many, like there's a thing in stand-up, like the only way I see failure chased often in stand-up is self-deprecation, which I think is fine. I think it's funny. But it's always like, I'm a piece of shit. I eat whatever I want. Like, look at this butt, look at my body, you know? And that's like certainly a way to be like, try to lower your status. But like I want to tell the worst jokes. Like I want to deal with the repercussions of the worst ideas. And by doing that, by like saying to this audience, like, it's just going to get worse. Are you in it with me? Like, are we in this together? Like, that's, I think, a very clown idea that, like we said right from the beginning, where when we build, like, clown shows, like, I can't tell you how many rehearsals I've been in where someone's come out and the idea is so atrocious, and we all just, like, guffaw, like, not this. And then the director will be like, oh, yeah, that's in the show. Like, because it's like the audience is just like, no, don't do this.
Yeah.
And so for me, none of the stand-up I do, like if I leave the stage and people are like, what an insightful set, then I failed. I want them to see me so committed to this bad stuff. You know, like I paint a black eye on myself. I use like a glycerin stick to create tears. Like I want to also like set up the most atrocious scenarios that comedy shouldn't exist in, because then I'm an underdog. And so if I fail, they're like, well, I don't know how anyone could have pulled that off. So it's like, well, that's great. Then, but yeah, like that's how I look at it. Like I want to get myself in trouble a lot, as opposed to the audience thinking, oh man, this guy's fast on his feet and he's funny, you know.
How has the idea of failure bled into your life in other ways? And is it harder in other areas?
You know, it's interesting. You know, this year has been like this huge year of change for me. Like I had a long time writing partner, and while we're like kind of taking a break because like we'd had a year where things just didn't click, and you know we're totally friends, and then my group Jetso retired, and I started working in Vegas and stuff like that, and I try to keep reminding myself that like no good thing comes from only success. Like, but it's hard, right? Like when you feel like you're not getting the opportunities, or when you feel like maybe you mishandled something, when you failed because of an oversight, like I guess I just keep trying to remember that like all of these, like you only can learn from mistakes, and you can only sort of be tested by failure. No one has ever been tested by success. no one's ever like, God, all the success. I feel like I've grown as a person.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
just killing it left and right. And now I'm a deeper, more soul. But having said that, I have struggled with it. Like on stage, I love to fail. I don't like to fail in life. Like I don't like to be wrong when I fight with my girlfriend. Like I don't like to forget to change my oil and then like my car costs me money. Like these sort of lapses in judgment. But I do feel like in the end, I'm like, what can I take from this? So no matter what has happened, I do always try to be like, what can I take so that I can do it better next time, or so I can try things differently? And I don't think I was always that person. I think a lot of times I was very happy to wallow in like self-pity and frustration and, and now I still do that, but like at the end of it, I at least try to be like, okay, so what are we taking from this? Like, is it, is there something here, or is this just a loss? Is this just a zero? And sometimes it is. Isn't that the worst part? When you're like, oh, I can learn nothing from this because I've done this a bunch of times just this way. So yeah, like I feel more connected with the experience of life, and I think I worry less just about my ego. But it is a constant struggle.
How do you worry less about your ego?
I guess, also, I just feel like, I mean, you're young. Like, I'm 46. Although I said I was 64 on Facebook, and everyone was like, congratulations. And I was so...
Congrats?
Well, I should just real quick. This is like, you want to talk about a failure?
Are you really 64?
No.
Okay, because I was about to say, you look so young.
So I was cleaning. I had a friend's son moved in. I have a spare room, and he needed a place for a couple months. And so I was cleaning up, and I found, I don't know how I got them, these huge 4 extra, like quadruple large pants. They're sweatpants. And my girlfriend was there. I'm like, oh my God, I want to take a picture because they're elastic bands. So I was like, let me take a picture where I'm holding out the elastic band.
Yeah.
And let me claim that I just lost 200 pounds. And it's just a joke. Like, so many people put those, like, love me. So I took this picture, and I'm smirking in the picture, like really like a dick. And I write this thing about being 64 and so shy, and I just lost 200 pounds. I got like 430 likes.
Of course.
And all these people were like, looking great for 64. And like people I worked with, like years, I'm like, there was a woman who was like, hey, you make 64 look great. And we both worked together when we were 25. And I'm like, do you think I like got ahead of you? Like, we were 25 at the same time.
What the fuck?
But it was this sort of thing where I'm like, oh my God, I guess my ego was like expecting people to be like, come on. Yeah, right. Did not happen.
Not a single person?
Like, people I went to high school with.
I just did.
People I went to high school with were like, you're not 64, because that was a personal attack on them.
Yeah.
But the weight loss, I'm on stage 4 nights a week minimum. I've been in LA for 16 years.
Yeah.
I was like, you would have known if I was 425 pounds 2 years ago. Like,
right.
Like, how are you not equating how big that is? Like, that's Andre the Giant kind of stuff. But we laughed. Like, everyone was just like, congratulations, you look great. I've been meaning to say, you know what? I hope I look this good at 64. I was like, so heartbroken.
Oh my God.
So that would be like a tremendous failure of, but like how you put your ego aside, I guess I've just failed a bunch, I worked I had my dream job in pro wrestling when I was young, and that company fell apart. I've sold 6 network pilots, haven't gotten one made. Got written 8 movies for studios, nothing got made. Had my partner die, I've just had so many, it's just at this point, it's like, if I can't get comfortable failing, then I just need to walk into the ocean and end this fucker. So it's like, I think part of it is like, as much as I'd like to attribute it to clown, and I do feel like it's helped, I feel like at some point in your life, if you want to chase your dreams and do things that are hard, you just have to be the kind of person who accepts that more often than not, you're not going to get what you want. And if that is an indictment on you as a person, then you cannot survive. Just yesterday, my poor girlfriend, I was driving to a clown show at the Lyric Hyperion, and she just caught me at the wrong time on the phone. And I just went on for like 10 minutes about, I have to accept the world doesn't want what I have to offer. You know, it's like really, something you should never do.
No,
like, thank God for partners. But
it's an LA thing.
Yeah, like just this sort of like, and like, you know, I got off the phone with her. I was like, oh, I can't believe I did. And you know, so it's like, I don't think you'll ever get to a point where you don't let the darkest part of you like speak, like, and sort of, but like right after that's over, you have to be like, no, this is all part of it. It wouldn't be worth anything if it wasn't this hard.
Yeah.
You know, what we do, like people, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I say that like, wouldn't have been like, if you were 21 and they were just like, you're in a movie, yeah, maybe that'd be great. I don't know.
Amazing.
We can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But you know, like, yeah, like I'm sure you've had your share of like setbacks, but at the same time, also, you know, I've known you for a bit and also you've steadily progressed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you can't celebrate that progression more than like grieve those setbacks, then, you know, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
You know, and I do. I feel like the clown philosophy, you know, I was a big improv guy and like yes and agreement and cooperation and that stuff's all great. But I think there's something definitely more spiritual about permission to be your worst and to have people love you at your worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you. I feel like that's a good place to end.
Yes. Love me at my worst, America.
Where can we find you on social media, and do you have any shows coming up or?
Yes. When is this going to be out? Do you know?
Next Wednesday.
Okay, great. So I am the Chad Damiani on Instagram, Twitter, and I have a Facebook page where I post all my events. And I am doing a show that actually Chelsea's doing on August 4th called Chad Live Directs a Workshop, where I take people with various sort of clown experience and we do a 90-minute, mostly silent clown show. We improvise it in front of a live audience. And that's like one of my favorite things to do. So that's at the Lyric Hyperion. We get great crowds for it. It's super funny. And in general, just check out my social media. And I'm doing shows always all over the place. And also, if you want to have a guy in a bomb vest show up at your stand-up show, you know, DM me. Hit me in the DM. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Hit me in the DMs.
Yeah. Slide in.
Slide in. Yeah, I don't want to be hitting the DMs. Let me just slide in.
And also, if you're ever looking to take a clown or physical comedy class, hit up Chad. You can find that info on your website.
Absolutely. And also, I travel. Like, I go to Toronto. I'm going to be teaching in Detroit and San Francisco. So
you're an incredible teacher.
Oh, thank you.
You really are. I've heard... you know, I have never taken another clown class before, or like an official one. I don't know if the workshop was like some of the stuff that you basically do in a clown class.
Yeah.
That's what I figured. But I know that a lot of teachers are, you know, a whole thing is that they're like really mean to you and they make you feel horrible.
There's a lot of
and they
negative,
make you cry. Yeah. And I was so glad that, you know, you teach in a really great way that feels very inclusive, and it really gives a space for people to feel like they can fail without feeling like horrible about themselves. You make failing fun. So I think that's like a really awesome aspect that you have as a teacher that, you know, I would tell anyone if you were interested in trying one, it's really awesome to do it with Chad because you'll feel really comfortable and secure.
Oh, well, that's so sweet. Yeah. Thank you so much. And this was a delight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.